Dr. Rapaport, Happy New Year.
Same to you. I'm sorry that it's a little dismal outside. Sunny California is not sunny today.
It's a blustery, rainy Southern California day.
Now we want to fit in with the rest of the world.
Yeah, boy, there's so much to talk about. The comment section of these videos has turned into a Waffle House brawl, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the controversy and some of the commentary. I think before we do, though, maybe a little housekeeping. This is episode number 6. We invite you to share these with your loved ones, because you are going through something that's just horrific and there's no capacity for them to understand. And part of our goal is to give you some comfort and some focus while you're going through this process, just really kind of being there for you. But you can offer more than that, can't you? You can be available to assist people, to be their co-pilot on this, correct?
Yeah, we're answering questions, but let me just say, 3 patients recently, and I don't know how many others, have called the office where I abruptly left in August, and were told that I'm not practicing medicine anymore. Well, that's false. That's wrong. You had put up my email address on the YouTube. It's rapndad@gmail.com, and my cell number is 310-876-2480 if they need to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to help. And the whole idea of these conversations is to answer all of the queries and questions and wonderments and sadness that occurs when you have something that takes 1,500 to 3,000 years to be cured. Every day is misery. In getting with the comments in replies to the YouTube, I have, with a graduate student in English at UCLA, Shannon Forrest, submitted a very detailed, total paper of all of my experiences with 6,500 patients cured, and delineating exactly what goes on with all of these patients and all of you who are watching. And the papers have been rejected, much to my dismay, and we will get into that a little bit. And I think there's some chicanery. I'm a little paranoid maybe, but why are they not putting this in print when it answers a lot of questions? And to corroborate that thought of paranoia, there has been no paper written, no letter to the editors of all the journals that we've submitted to, of all the derm literature, denying what I have been extolling for 40 years.
Well, I think you've answered your own question. They would have to admit that they've been wrong. That the entire dermatological orthodoxy has been incorrect with regard to eczema and perceived eczema.
Well, that's exceptionally logical, and you probably are right, and it brings up the concept of legal issues. And that might be why they dasn't discuss it any further. But while we're doing that, tens of thousands of suffering patients are suffering. And they're running from one post to one pillar to look for answers, and they're being told, we are going to give you steroids, stronger ones, or get out of my office, or you're going to use the 4 new drugs that have come out that cost $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Well, I mean, here's my question. If I were a dermatologist and I bought into your whole notion and your experience and everything that you're serving up, my first question would be, how am I going to make any money off of this?
Well,
as a derm, how am I going to make any money?
I am sure that every derm office in America is jam-packed. I have heard nothing but I can't get in for 2 to 4 months to get an appointment. They are seeing all kinds of things. People are worried about growths, about melanoma, about peculiar rashes, about psoriasis, about hair loss, about toenails, etc., etc., etc. They have enough practice, enough patients to earn a very fine living. And to stop giving the wrong medicine and prolonging this misery that these people have. If I may, just to corroborate, and this was in the journal, lay journal political commentary, it's a review of a new book by a man named Skull, Desperate Remedies, Psychiatry's Turbulent Quest to Cure Mental Illness. And he goes on, but one paragraph struck me, which is so apropos to dermatology and all of medicine. And I have found this to be a problem in the last 2-3 decades. Skull is his name for mental problems. Skull caps the book with a devastating critique of contemporary psychiatry, which likes to congratulate itself, as does the rest of medicine, that evidence-based medicine and clinical trials have freed it from the quackery of the past. Now at least we know what works right? ? Not so fast, Skull convincingly argues that between industry-sponsored trials, cherry-picking of data, and a publishing bias for positive results, not to mention the usual venal influences of money and corruption, the system has often produced evidence-based medicine rather than evidence-biased medicine, rather than evidence-based medicine. And I totally agree. Most of the new drugs in all the fields show a little bit of a difference between placebo and drug, or their drug and the competitor, which they rarely do because they won't show much difference. And it's a statistical significance which allows the FDA to approve it, to be published, and for the company to run amok and sell the drugs. I know I'm on my high horse here, but I'll say one more thing. One of the major germ journals, the Journal of the American Academy, a 4-page ad for one of the new anti-eczema drugs, one of the JAK inhibitors, and all they have is itch scratch. It helps itching in about 50% of patients meaningfully. I don't know what that is in terms of medicine and science. And then another one, a 3-page ad with no betterment of any symptoms, just smiling faces, smiling ladies, and talking about progress continuing, just talking gobbledygook. And it's published by the same journals that rejected my articles.
Well, and I know it's impossible to not have your ego involved in this. I certainly couldn't do it. But it kind of is what it is, and you're continuing to fight the fight.
I find it fun. Is that a good word?
No, I think it's
I get
appropriate.
excited. Thank you. I'm so pleased of our interviews. You ask the right questions. You lead me in the right direction. And there's a camaraderie after you having gone through what you went through, and you're almost there, totally cured. Though I do get frustrated. I can't see an opening. As you walked in this morning, I told you that on my computer are 6 potentially new retainer patients for me to help around the world that have come in since last night on my computer. And if I open the letters up, the emails up, woe and moaning and horror and tears of the hell that they're all going through. And this is multiplied by tens of thousands that we have cured, we have heard from, that we have no idea are out there buried in some rabbit hole, afraid to come out for fear of living. That's so sad. And it's curable. And it's all doctor-induced. That's the problem. And your opening salvo comments upon that, and that could be the answer why we're having so much resistance.
Well, and I've seen allusions to the effect that you're wrong, and where that lies is you saying that, gut health is not a factor. Acupuncture. I've heard people who have been on cyclosporine say, "Well, it didn't help," and then you ask their dosage, and it was not a meaningful.
Not appropriate.
It was not
too low.
Not. So I guess that gets into the telemedicine aspect of it. Is that you're very, very comfortable with working with these drugs, and a local internist to have the right. I apologize if I'm putting words in your mouth. To have the right dosage, to monitor the results, and push the envelope a little bit of I guess, their ability to function in life. Is that correct?
Well, I will say this with a supposition on my part with no evidence. These could be planted stories by the drug companies. And I'm very suspicious that the new drugs like Dupixent and the newer ones, when they go to the office and they tell the doctors that their new drug is really very good, and it is not. None of them are. They've all failed. Dupixent has failed for 5 years. No paper about any betterment or cures. They tell the doctors that cyclosporin, which I have used in over 850 people with total success, except for the very few who were still on therapy, they're all cured, all the others. They're told by the detail people or other doctors, you cannot use cyclosporin over 1 year. Where did that nonsense come from? The transplant people are on cyclosporin-like drugs for 10 to 15 years to live, and they're doing fine. There is no such thing as you must stop after a year. But I have heard this at least 10 times from patients being told this by the dermatologists they went to.
Well, isn't that funny that the dermatologists are concerned about their liability, but they're not concerned about injecting you with a $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 drug and what the ramifications of that are? I mean, I do find that a little ironic.
It's outrageous. There is no way that when a new drug came out 30, 40 years ago that we were askance looking at it and the side effects. And they were very cautious in doing proper studies and showing huge differences between it and placebo. And we were comfortable but still wary. And we waited for the year studies to come out after 1 million more people were on drug to be sure it was safe. Not today. They cannot wait like a toy, a new toy. I see it on the tubes, on the
chat groups.
The chat groups. How they can't wait for the new one. I can't wait to try the drug on the new one with no good data. How dare them use their patients as guinea pigs? And if you look at the ad on 6 o'clock news on channel ABC, there's a list of side effects and drugs that would scare anybody from taking anything ever. And they're willing. I can't wait I'm gonna call up some of my patients to start the new drug on them. Outrageous.
Like anything, and without your experience, when I started hearing about these things, I was agnostic on the subject, and I just let the information come to me. And I have yet, and maybe one of our viewers can comment, I've yet to meet someone either online or otherwise that said, boy, I started XYZ drug and I'm just perfect. Or I've even better. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite. Don't take your word for it, Dr. Marvin. Look at the comments for people that have been on these experimental drugs. I mean, I guess they're not experimental. They're patented. They're patented,
approved.
Approved finger quotes drugs, where nobody's saying that they're.
Well, there is a ready answer, a very simple answer. And again, I'll hark back to what I said 10 minutes ago. When some entity, and namely steroid addiction and red skin syndrome and withdrawal, take 1,500 to 3,000 days to be cured. If you get put on Dupixent in your 5th year because you're still having a little bit of trouble, and then you miraculously see no rash 3 to 6 months later, you're going to give credit to Dupixent,
Right.
or the doctor does,
Yep.
which is ludicrous. When you go on the drug on the first day of withdrawal and you're still suffering miserably for 6 months or a year, and the doctor says, well, you're going to need to be on this drug for the rest of your life, that's even more ludicrous and more outrageous and scandalous. So it depends when they're put on the drug. It depends who's talking them into it, and how many free lunches or dinners the doctors are getting with free coupons to keep the process going. I do not exaggerate. Almost all of the people that I have put on cyclosporin in the last 6-7 years, since Dupixent has been out, have been failures on Dupixent. Prior to that, I felt very comfortable using cyclosporin, looking for a big gun because I was not getting benefits from just supporting the patients after the super potent steroids were used. We've talked about that. That I needed something, and cyclosporin looked to be the safest, and it was. You have to watch the blood pressure, you watch the kidney function. The younger people have almost zero problems. As people get older, their kidney function goes down a little bit, and you have to watch it a little more carefully. I have not had to stop anybody. And all of those patients, either they're cured of the 850, or 30 or 40 are still on therapy.
The older patients that are on cyclosporin, that you are seeing a downtick in kidney function. When you tap the brakes or lower their dosage, do you see that kidney function return? I mean, is it a one-way street when there's diminished kidney function?
Yeah, as I just said, and I worried with the first few. This was a new area for me, and I got very concerned. But as I lowered the dose, or stopped for a couple weeks, or whatever, or juggled the dose, or stopped for a week and then started again, I tried various methods. I have not had to stop anyone on the drug. They all went through with a juggling of the dosage if I needed to, until they were cured.
So this really gets to the crux of the matter as far as your involvement in their treatment, because you know what? It's a high wire act. And someone in Minnesota who's going and seeing an internist, that internist isn't going to have the track record and the experimentation that you have. And I don't mean to be putting on a sales hat for your telemedicine involvement, but that really is what it is, right? In addition to being a handholder, you're their, I guess, advocate with their local doctor to be on the right course of action.
Well, you must realize that doctors are human, and the humanistic part of them, they take the cloak of science off their shoulder and they get afraid. So if they've heard something bad about a medication, cyclosporin's been around for 30, 40 years, used in dermatology for blistering diseases, for psoriasis, for several other things, for colitis, for arthritic problems. Safe, perfectly fine. But if they've heard something bad about a medication, they're very wary. They're afraid to try. They used to try everything when they were in residency. They couldn't wait to get a difficult case to try this drug and that drug and learn and learn. Now they won't do it. But they'll start the new drugs because Company X bought them lunch. I know it's being cynical on my part, but I think that might be a major factor. And they're given free coupons to start the patient on the drug, and they willingly do it.
Yeah. Well, they're desperate.
And not worried.
Well, of course they would. They're desperate, right? The guy in the white coat's telling them this may help.
But
And the advertisement says it may help.
It may help. I find it's silly, and these are not around 2 days old or 2 weeks old. Dupixent about 6-7 years already. Enough patients have come to the doctor's offices saying it didn't work. The next derm they go to, and the other drugs have been around since the beginning of this year or the end of last year. That's a whole year track record.
Well, but let's explore that a little bit. When you say work, whether it's cyclosporine or any of the other things you're helping with the patient with, it's symptom mitigation, correct? The withdrawal is the withdrawal, and it's gonna happen at its own pace. And all you're doing, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but all you're doing is getting them to function during this metabolic process. Is that a fair assessment?
That's the word I relish, function. All anybody has to do when you're addicted is to stop the addicting drug, period. The opioid addict, the methamphetamine addict, the alcoholic, he stops the culprit. He'll go through hell for a year or two or more, but that's his answer. Stop it. Well, he's got the shakes, he's got memory loss, he's got tics, he's got worries, he's got sweating, he's got gut problems. He needs help with those symptoms to function. The same with these patients. They're red, they're itchy, they're burning, they're miserable, they can't sleep. What, you're going to say, all you got to do is stop the drug, you'll be okay. No, they can't live. They can't work.
But that's how 95% of withdrawal sufferers are going through life.
That's
They're
right.
They're going cold turkey, and they're just getting jerked around with all these false remedies.
Well, then they reach out. I can't do this anymore. It's been 3 months. It's been this. It's been that. You should see the letters that I get. So they run to the internet, and somebody says there's a leaky gut syndrome. You shouldn't eat anything but a gluten-free diet. Huh? Or you should go to an acupuncturist. Huh? Et cetera, et cetera. They'll reach out for ridiculous, silly things, but will not go to a doctor. They're angry at doctors also.
We did mention ITSAN this last video, and I don't want to trigger you because I mean we're all appreciative that there is a awareness level. But it did open a little bit of a floodgate of commentary. And this one person writes that it seems to me that ITSAN members are almost gaslighting each other with, if you do this or if you do that, you'll be cured. Offering suggestions to help relieve discomfort is different than what they're talking about. They're offering cures, one TSW sufferer to another, and that's happening on ITSAN. And what had happened was it opened up a floodgate of responses. This person writes, I too am getting annoyed when I share photos of where my TSW friend is in his recovery and am questioned about gut health. He's done it all with the exception of carnivore. He's done everything. We wanted to believe that we could control topical steroid withdrawal with our behavior, but we can't. Topical steroid withdrawal does what it does.
Well, we've never discussed this, and I don't bring it up ever. I think it's about time. It's time.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, but it's time.
Don't get us a strike.
I'm sorry, but it's time.
Okay.
Do you know who funded and who founded ITSAN?
Yes, I do.
I shave him every morning.
No, I got it. Okay. We can't.
It lasted for 2 years. I worked it out with a patient from Florida, Kelly Palace, but I did all of the heavy lifting. After about 2 years of all of them, whatever free speech allows, were giving advice and medical cures to everybody, I felt I was in jeopardy for malpractice. And I dropped them and I had to bring legal action.
Okay, well, let's leave it at that.
Fine.
You've said it.
Fine.
Right? It's out there.
So they're still giving advice.
Well, right, they are giving advice, and it's members giving advice to others. But yeah, I think we probably should leave it at that.
Fine. Okay, it's okay. It's got to be told. And when it's not just them, but there are groups in Europe that support, and they say just as many ridiculous things and advice. And when you're suffering and miserable, they're being taken advantage of. And don't forget to donate, after you read my advice. Well, that's outrageous. That's very outrageous. And I think the rationale for hearing another moaning, groaning, weeping history of what I'm going through, it's enough. That might be a problem, because when the doctors hear some of these outrageous things from the patients new to them in their office, citing things that they've read on these support groups, the doctors think the patients are crazy.
Right.
And they avoid them. And they're defeating the whole purpose of what we're doing. So they should back off with this free advice and this make a concerted effort to change doctors' attitudes. That would be very valuable.
This person writes that through these collaborations and communications with other people, they're unfairly led to believe that they're not being healed by virtue of their own behavior. And that mentality exists today. When we go out into the topical steroid withdrawal community and we listen to testimonials, everybody talks about what they're doing, all the things that we've mentioned. And to the poor person that's suffering, in addition to the suffering, they're led to believe that they're also doing something wrong. And that breaks my heart.
Well, I have repeatedly told patients, this harks back to humanity's understanding of the world. And it harks back to how they looked at the world in the 1500s. That if they didn't go to church on Sunday, that's why they're suffering with a rash or with a disease. So they better go to church next Sunday. Well, in this day and age, I have control over the food I eat, over the ice cream I ingest, over that second glass of wine that I have, of being nicer to my dog, of being really good to my divorced wife, etc., etc., etc. And my rashes will get better and my disease will be better, which is faulty, silly thinking, but we all do this. It's human nature. And that has got to stop in order to get to a cure.
Pat writes, I was 15 months into topical steroid withdrawal when I learned of you from a dermatologist who I had seen several times in addition to 6 and 7 others. He confidently suggested I contact you. That's progress, doctor. That's progress. If members of the medical community are saying, seek this guy out, that's a big deal, I think.
Well, fine. I must reveal to you that with these chat groups that I've joined in on and other conferences or talks with doctors, telephone conversations, etc., 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 they are adamant, they're vehement that anybody would take their best favorite toy away. A shot of Kenalog, cortisone creams, super potent creams, etc., etc. How dare me suggest that what they're doing is wrong? And they really don't realize that they've made the wrong diagnosis. These patients do not have eczema anymore. They are steroid addicted. They have red skin syndrome. Period. Entirely different biopsy. History is different. presentation is different, symptoms are different. Eczema kids didn't burn. They just itched in the crook of the arm, that's all. And they got better by age 8 or 9. There was no such thing as a 37-year-old chronic eczema person in 1930. They all got better.
We have a little bit of an issue with terminology and people hearing what they're hearing. This person writes, I'm nearing 10 years TSA. I have flared again, red, oozing, swollen, and bedbound. This has happened every year without fail, and I'm exhausted. 15 years of topical steroid use and 1 course of prednisone. But the people commenting didn't read TSA, topical steroid addiction. They read topical steroid withdrawal. So the people responding were saying, "Oh my God, you're 10 years into topical steroid withdrawal. I guess Dr. Rapaport is a quack and he's wrong." And it's that easy to go off the rails. Yeah. And I saw it and you can see it. You can go in our comments and see how things are misread and interpreted, and the bias is to discredit.
Why do they want to discredit? They're angry. And I'm the only one close at hand that they can be angry at. A few, very few. But they want to prove me wrong on my delineation of how long it's going to take for a cure. So when I say 3 to 5 years, well, I used to say 20 years ago, 1 to 3 years, because they were only using weak strength steroids. Well, I upped the ante as the super potent steroids were the only ones used, et cetera, et cetera. So if I'm off by 5 years and 3 more months, they rail me on the internet or they say something. Often also, there are other things going on. They have thickened skin from years of scratching, and they think that's still steroid addiction or red skin, steroid withdrawal or red skin. That thickened skin is a third diagnosis that's going to take time and sunshine to go away, and it will. Or they have dry skin, or they're itching still because that's part of their inheritance, itchiness. So they still have the problem. No, it's a different entity, and they have to be evaluated and told. I have never seen a patient, person to person, and examine them and get a good history where anything I just said, I had to question myself and say, I've never seen this before. No, there always was a very logical explanation. And it might have taken a little longer than 5 years, that's all.
I just thought that this was a microcosm comment. This person's not wrong. He's saying he's 10 years into topical steroid addiction, not withdrawal, and then the comments are off to the races. Yeah. Well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? It's like, are you not watching these damn videos? Are you not?
Well, I don't know how to answer that other than...
There is no answer. It's ridiculousness.
And luckily they're rare, few and far between.
No, but he's not addicted. I mean, he's not in withdrawal. He's still addicted. And they're reading it that he's withdrawing. He's not withdrawing. He hasn't started. Anyway, I just thought that was crazy.
The numbers still are absolute true. 99% follow the same patterns. All right, 95%. The same patterns, the same response to medication, the same response to a sleeping pill, the same cessation of burning, the same problems with jumping in a bath at the beginning because the skin burns, the same itch cycles, all the same, because this is an entity called red skin syndrome. And they have a pattern, period. All of them.
Well, I think we can't gloss over the fact that they'll be cured. And you can't say it enough. You can't say it enough.
I love telling them that. And in fact, when I write back on some of these emails, I put C-U-R-E in capital letters. And I get a response, maybe with a tear even, that's so nice to hear that. I've never heard that from anybody else. And they're going to be cured.
Yeah, here it is. Here was one of the responses. You've mentioned a few of these videos that typically last 3 to 5 years. I've seen many people on TSW community say they're 8, 9, 10 years. I think that's either being misread or thick. I mean, it's not, come on, thickened skin after 10 years.
But why would they even want to counter what I say?
Right.
When I say that 6,500 and 10,000 more have all had the same pattern, so I'm off by a little bit, maybe by a month, 2 months, who knows?
Right.
But that's the nature of being miserable and being depressed and being suffocated by aggravation on a daily basis. They have to strike out against somebody.
People said they see this stuff, they read this stuff, and they end up losing all hope. They end up losing all hope because they're not doing the right thing. But they're hungry for information, doctor.
Well, what also happens, and has happened so often, and most of the support group comments are like this, or a stray comment will be, well, the only way to get better is time. And I say, whoa, the symptoms must be taken care of to function. And let me tell you what I do, the vast majority of what I do when I see these patients in the office, on the internet, on telemedicine, I'm holding their hand. They need psychotherapy. They're despondent. They're depressed. They're suicidal. Isn't that medicine? We do that with other diseases. But no, you're not really doing anything. How can you say that? I'm saddened when somebody even thinks that, when that is the essence of most medicine, is to bring them out of the doldrums and to allow them to function.
As a hats off, as a complete aside, I have to give a hats off to women who are in the absolute throes of unmedically assisted topical steroid withdrawal. You're not helping them, and they get pregnant. I mean, this is a special type of woman.
Yeah. Well,
and a relationship too, by the way. I mean, it's incredible.
I've gotten into other discussions with doctors and other people when it comes to why mankind and womankind do things. And I resort, from my experience dealing with human beings for 40 years, 300 to 400,000 patients, I resort to the essence of instinct. Most women want to have children. It is in their mindset, in their gene flow, in all of their gestalt, and they will do anything to have that child and to protect that child. And I've seen maybe 15 to 20 ladies pre-pregnancy. Maybe some eggs are in freezing and they want to get them out. And we talk, and they're red skin, and we talk about it. And I suggest maybe get you a little bit more comfortable, because this could be an ordeal during the pregnancy. For sure, the first ones I saw, I was very worried because I couldn't give them anything. They're pregnant. Interestingly, they have a little rough time at the beginning, the first trimester, and then their normal natural cortisone kicks in a little bit. They start releasing it from the adrenal glands, which helps them a little bit, and their symptoms get less and less, and it's tolerable. And now that the pregnancy is full-blown, and they're able to sleep better, and they're able to do this better, and they're able to do that better, we're home free.
Without medication? Is what you're saying, without medication?
Near the end, the last trimester, with the obstetrician's help and advice and corroboration, we use antihistamines, anti-itch, hydroxyzine, safe. Haven't resorted to anything else. And they have some sleeping pills that the obstetrician allows. So that's covered. That's 2 complaints. The bath is easy. The oozing is easy. We have that. Psychotherapy talk, not Valium or anything else. So we've covered almost everything.
So I wasn't planning to go there. You responded much more thoughtfully to my just casual observation. But as you're talking and I'm thinking, is it possible that when somebody goes through something as, I guess, life-changing and radical as topical steroid withdrawal, that they start reflecting on their own mortality and their legacy, and that could be a factor in having children while going through this? I mean, I hate to be philosophical, but is that...
Not sure that stops them. Their drive and their instinct is so strong.
Just the maternal...
Yeah, it's so strong.
Yeah.
And they'll do anything. And I've teased about something. I used to jog on a main thoroughfare early in the morning. And I always said I would never run in front of a carpooling mother. She would run me over to get that kid to school on time. And this instinct is huge, is strong. I must say, and I'll, just for completeness, and I don't have an answer, and I will not do it, I will not even give an opinion further, but I have seen 2 patients who stayed on cyclosporin under the care of the obstetrician while they were pregnant.
Interesting.
And no problems happened.
Thank
I
God.
was opposed, I was very fearful, very worried. It's only 2 patients. One patient had 2 pregnancies, and the baby's fine, the mother was fine. But I just don't like that idea. I don't know what the future would hold for this child. Maybe some strange genetic things happen or cell things happen, and they'll manifest it years later. So that therein lies my reluctance.
So people watching this now, maybe they're in bed looking for some comfort, just calmed by your voice. What's their future going to be? They're going to be okay?
Well, and again, harking back to the instinct of womanhood to have children, the absolute vast majority of human beings are normal, and they forget. As they come out of the auto accident, as they come out of the surgery, as they come out of the stroke, whatever, as they come out of something like this, 6 months, a year later, they forget and they move on with life. That's the normal human being. Of course, there are others who have pre-morbid personalities, pre-morbid psychiatric worries. They might not. So they need assistance, they need help. But I'm telling you, amazing.
Is it possible for that person who's in the throes of suffering, sitting in the bathtub with the water running over them, is it possible for them to even comprehend what normalcy and life on the other side is?
It's well put. No. How can you, when you have something on your mind bothering you 24/7, 24/7, how can you even conceive that it's going to stop? And when they get depressed or they get suicidal, that really upends them. And that means it's a harsh task that they've undertaken, withdrawal, and to live with for a long period of time. They need help. Well, that's why they're on the internet all the time. And that's why what your opening comment was very appropriate for Mr. and Mrs. Audience. Please have your friends and relatives watch also to understand the ordeal that you're going through.
Send these videos around. Like, please, share, and subscribe so that people aren't bombarding you with these witch potions and gaslighting you with cures that just are, false. They're dead ends. Tell us what gaslighting is, by the way.
Gaslighting was a play in the 40s. It was made into a movie which made it more famous with Charles Boyer and Ingrid Bergman. Victorian era. She was wealthy and owned a magnificent house. He wanted that house, and he tried his darndest to make her believe that she was psychotic. He kept hiding things. He kept changing things. He made her think again and again that what she did was wrong, with the intent of stealing the home and getting rid of her. That term never went any further, but for some reason, somebody rediscovered it about 1 to 3 years ago. I think it was rediscovered by young women who started writing little blurbs in their journals or magazines, forewarning other women to be wary of men who gaslight them, who lie to them, who lead them astray. Be very careful. And then it snowballed into other areas. And it's a very good term, but that's where it comes from. And the gaslighting, I assume, I have to remember, was the way they lit the homes at night with gaslights.
Well, I can say with 100% certainty that every single topical steroid withdrawal sufferer is confronted when they start doing their research that they're doing something wrong. They're just not doing something.
Well, there's a positive that I'm strong enough, I have control. And there's a negative, God's after me. He's punishing me for not doing something. I was mean, I didn't go to church, etc., etc. So it's a combination of both. We all, no matter how normal we think we are, we all have these wonderments. You know, I know, I'll admit it on national TV. Just like in many big buildings in New York, there is no 13th floor. I'll go on the treadmill or on the bicycle or whatever. I will not stop at 13 minutes. I always go to 14 or 20 minutes.
That's funny.
That's funny. And I laugh whenever I do that. I will not do it though.
Wow. I guess where I really have a problem is the suffering, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but the suffering is so bad, and that person is just miserable. They're desperate for anything, and somebody tells them to only eat marshmallows. You got to go on the marshmallow diet. So they go on the marshmallow diet. 2 weeks later, the marshmallow diet's not working, and it just adds to their sense of failure and just despair. Not to mention the fact that they feel guilty about even being in this position in the first place and using the topicals and getting here.
Well, you bring up a giant concept in medicine, the placebo effect. If you ask them 2 days into eating the marshmallows, how you doing? They'll tell you, I think I'm a little bit better. That's human nature, until the 2 week time when they're not.
Till they're not.
Yeah.
All right, we went a little long. I didn't even get through half of our comments. We'll have to pick up again soon.
We're having a good time. I hope we're imparting good information. We are open to help. With personal medical care, if they want telemedicine, we're offering advice. We have all kinds of blogs and films and these conversations, et cetera, et cetera. There's enough information out there, but it really does boil down to there's an addiction to a medical product called topical steroids, and the cure is to stop using it. The hell follows until they're finally cured with support that's moderate to maximum to more outlandish than maximum, and they're all cured.
And we're going to keep talking to you, viewer. We're going to be with you. We love you. I guess my sense is I'm so excited about their future being cured, because, like you said, they can't envision it. I'm excited. I'm excited for their life that they're going to have.
Well, you like to think that we're going to gather those 50,000 people and march down Broadway or, on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. Not going to happen. I'm telling you, everybody will forget. They're going to move on with life, and it'll be over with. But we'll smile at the cures and know that our 2 cents, our logic, our observational skills worked, and they're cured. That's why you go into medicine.
Well, I'll never forget. That sucked. I was not happy. That was awful.
But your personality is. You're a tough person. You handle life. You carry the heavy lifting. But you did strange things. You said annoying things. You are so different. And you probably don't even think about it anymore. Or it's off your shoulders and out of your brain in a huge percent. You're going about other business.
Yeah.
In fact, we've talked. You're into other businesses.
Well, I have to be.
Because you have time now.
Yeah, right.
You don't think about this 24/7.
Well, it is true. My table of contents is expanded, I guess, for lack of a better word, which is great.
Yeah.
And it was unimaginable 20 months ago. Not even at all possible.
Maybe also a pipe dream would be that those who are cured ultimately will look upon their fellow man a little bit differently and reach out with their hand to lend a helping hand, because of all the hell that they went through.
Well, and for people who do have loved ones or friends that are using topical steroids therapeutically, please feel free to share these videos. You're not in for anything. You're not making any money on this. So,
how can we change the doctors? How can we get this idea across that I've been writing about for 40 years? How can we show the world the thousands of cured patients?
Well, these videos are maybe a drop in the ocean, right? If we drop a drop of water in Los Angeles as it felt in London, I don't know, but maybe.
We're optimistic. We're having a good time. Basically, if I
you just got another email.
6 new patients from last night.
Yeah.
Or potential new patients. So the videos are being watched. But it also tells me there's still so many out there suffering. Still.
Well, you see it with the testimonial videos. People will give their first topical steroid update on YouTube, and they just have not been exposed to the panoply of information. They're still chasing these false dead ends. But anyway, we'll leave it there. We're going to be cured? Are they going to be cured?
John, as always, you are super. You ask the right questions. You elicit the right answers. You elicit answers from me. I hope they're the right ones.
Well, we're going to do it again very soon.
Okay.
You ready to go get a sandwich?
We better not have ice cream. We'll get punished.
All right. We'll be back soon. Thank you, everybody. Like, share, subscribe.